So when we go live on the laptop, it's still live on the phone. That's weird.
Oh, it forces the live, you
That's
said?
weird. I'm about to exit out so that doesn't happen. What did
And
what the fuck I do?
why is it two of them?
I don't know. I did something wrong. Okay, maybe
It's not touchscreen. It's not touchscreen.
I don't
Why
know.
are you touching the screen? Though? Why you not going to
Ah, babe.
stop, Mike, or calm?
No, no. I want this one on. I want this one off.
This one off?
Yeah, this one's off. Exit, exit. Oh, that's edit.
Mhm.
I don't know why the fuck. Yeah, remove.
It's the-
Yeah, see now that's working. No, you shut up.
Wait, where's the sound coming from?
Shut up. That's echoing because it's on the phone. All right, so you good now. So go ahead and start your lesson.
All right.
Look at you. You got two books ready. This don't make no sense, Augustus.
What?
Just go ahead. All right.
All right, I'm gonna try to make this quick. Like, I'm not trying to be here all day with this.
Every time you say I'm gonna try to make this quick, you had 2 hour lessons.
I'm not. I'm not doing all that. God. All right. So, can they hear me clearly? How do you know?
Yeah,
Like with the air on and everything?
yeah,
You can still hear?
yeah. I'm about to go check them out. I'll be right back.
All right. Where am I talking into? Is there no?
Babe, just talk. It's the laptop. It's already recording you.
All right.
Hi, I'm Gus.
Hi, I'm Gus. And
You want the video?
oh, do I not want to?
I don't know. I don't know what you want.
I don't
What do
care.
you want?
I don't care. I'm just putting
You
it
was going
on.
to take it off, so take it off. I put it on there, so I don't like people looking at my face. You don't have a problem with it. See?
Hmm, fucking promoting Ralph Lauren.
That's what I said. Leave
Shit.
that shit off.
Um. All right. All right. I'm just gonna put this down. I hope y'all can hear clearly. Grounded says y'all can hear it clearly, so I'm just gonna assume y'all can hear it clearly. I hope. All right. Uh, the title of this lesson is "How to Make Bad Good." How to turn bad into good. The reason why I was going through these thoughts or some of these is because we were going. Me and Grounded were going through our observation of how much we put into um, trying to make things better for ourselves, and sometimes we make mistakes along the way because when we're trying to make something better for ourselves, we don't have the proper tools, and sometimes we don't approach it in the right way. So um, I don't know. So these are just my thoughts, some ideas I was kicking around on how we can approach this situation or situation that we might find ourselves in if it is not a good one, and how we can make that bad good. Um, so that's it. All right. So I've identified 3 points that I think are relevant. Those 3 points are entertaining, the entertainment, imagination, and realization. And I'm gonna go through these three, and I'm gonna show you how, in my opinion, they can be used in order to address some of our bad situations. All right. So starting with entertainment. So entertaining, the process of entertaining. The process of entertaining is one whereby which you accept something that you wouldn't normally accept by any other means as true. What do I mean by that? Okay. I always use McDonald's. I'm always picking on McDonald's. McDonald's has a slogan. Their slogan that they put out is a preparatory slogan, meaning that it primes your brain. It makes you think a certain thing before you even get to think for yourself, formulate an opinion. It primes your opinion. Okay. And their slogan is they get you to repeat something. And I'm not going to repeat it here because that will be obviously counterproductive. But if they can get you to repeat their slogan, what you'll notice about the slogan is that it is self-centered, right? It starts with an I statement, which means that it goes for the power, the source of the power, which is you. You are it. You are the source of power. You are the reason why everything is going around, and you are it. I know that for some people that's hard to believe because we've been taught that the energy of creation is in some person. It's either in some person or some object or some idol or some. It's definitely not in you. That's what you've been taught. Um, but those who understand it differently, well, they make their goal you. You're the goal. If I can get you to believe in this thing, if I can get you to practice this thing, that's how I win. That's not just terrestrial, it's not just companies, but that also applies to energies. If I can get you to entertain me, then I can have success. Because the idea is that you are the battery. You are the energy source. If I can get you to plug in, then I can get power from you because you are the source. You have a great amount of source energy bound up inside of you. And as long as you're walking around living and breathing, then I can tap into that same energy. But I have to do it with a process. And it begins with entertaining. So first, I got to get you to entertain this idea. So going back to Mickey D's, they get you to entertain the idea of where you place your love energy. Okay. And if they can get you to entertain the idea that you place your love energy into their product, then they win. Not because of something they've done, not because they've created something that's awesome. No, because they've got you to entertain an idea. That's it. Simple. Next is imagination. Imagination, I define as the process of creating realities that don't exist. They are not tangible right now, but the possibility of all realities exists because creation source energy exists. So therefore, anything can exist from that source energy. That is what imagination is. It is an image that you pull up in your head, and then you try your best to bring that image to reality. That is what imagination is. So the process of creating realities that don't exist, in which you do things that you wouldn't do in real life unless normal rules were suspended. So an example of this would be if you were a person living in the 1800s and let's flip it. Yeah, let's say you're a person in the 1800s and you see one of these somebody else's slave, um, and it's early 1800s. You see somebody else's slave and you like, man, she's really cute. I like that girl, right? But you can't really like her because she's not really human. She's chattel. So that wouldn't be cool, right? To the rest of your friends, you couldn't bring her home for dinner. You couldn't, you know what I mean? That wouldn't be normal. That's not something that happens. That's not in reality in the early 1800s, right? In some places. So I should have made that more specific, but I don't feel like doing all that. But let's just say you travel. You go from Georgia, 1800s Georgia, to France. And when you're in France, you see people of all nationalities making couples. Well, your mind is blown because you didn't even know this was a possibility because it was not a reality where you're from in Georgia. So what has to happen now is you have to now, because you saw something different, that goes into your mind. And then your mind is open to other possibilities, other realities that could exist. So now you start to imagine. When you get back to Georgia, you imagine, man, what if I What if I did take that slave girl and make her my girl, man? Man, what if I did that? Like they do over in Paris. That's normal over there. How come I can't do that over here? Well, that imagination that you have is the beginning of a realization. Okay, you're making it real, but you have to start with the image inside of your mind first. So, imagination is the process in which we create realities that don't exist, in which you do things that you wouldn't do in real life unless normal rules were otherwise suspended. So you step outside of the box, and it's chilly in here now.
I turned it off. I turned it off.
And now that you've stepped outside of the box that you were in, your previous reality, now you can do something else. You can do something different. And that brings us to our third point, which is realization. And I define realization as practicing things that are small, but if scaled, would be harmful for people, could be possibly harmful for the people involved, or
No, I was talking to myself. Sorry.
okay, people involved in said activity. So, for example, war games, unfettered violence that we experience through virtual reality, video games, virtual, all of the video games that I consider them all to be virtual reality because they're simulating a reality, um, but it's not one that you can touch. So that simulation, practicing that simulation, um, what do you call it? Throwing somebody out their car, right? Taking their car for a joyride. That GTA life, that's virtual. But when we see somebody do that in our actual reality, we immediately draw the correlation. Like, damn, that's some GTA type shit they just did, right? So realization is the practice of those things. So you're practicing those ideas, and you might even practice it on a small scale. But the idea is that once you start to practice it, it has now become a real thing. And people say art imitates reality or art imitates life or something like that. Um, but that whole idea is a chicken and egg type thing where what came first? You know what I mean? Did this person act like this in reality, or were they inspired by something that was just someone else's imagination and then they acted it out into reality? Well, the truth of the matter is that all of these things are idea based first. So they don't actually exist. Nothing actually exists until we grab it, use our living energy, and make it real. That is the process. Um, so I identify these three things. First, entertaining the idea. Second, imagining that it's you practicing that idea. And then three, actually doing the idea, the realization. This process, this 1, 2, 3 step, is how we go from um, the the value system of a nuclear family to the value system of anything goes. I'm not putting judgment on either one. I'm just saying, as human beings living on planet Earth, this is what in my opinion, I've identified as how we go from one place to another, whether it be going from a place that we say is good to a place that we say is bad. The people who were enslaved at the time of slavery, they didn't think it was good, but the people who were doing the enslaving did think it was good. It was not a bad thing for them. They saw the end of that as something bad, while the people who were enslaved saw the end of that as something good. So it's just perspective. It's just where you stand. Okay. But either way, going from good to bad or bad to good, I believe this is the process that we do. This is what we take. It's simple 3 step process going from an idea to reality. So let me continue. Every time you attempt one or three of these, you feed the energy and create a cycle where energies can come to feast on food. As long as food is offered, they will come and feast, come to eat. And what I mean by that is, um, all I've said this before, I'm gonna say it again. All of this is just ideas, and ideas have energy. Okay, they are not living in the sense that we would say they, respirating and things of that nature. They're not living in that sense, but they are most certainly alive in that they are imbued with energy. That energy is what starts their living. However, in order to maintain that life, they need to eat. Yes, ideas need to eat. So the idea of um let's see, take an idea. I did an idea in my last lesson I did with y'all. I talked about how the idea of might is right. We talked a little bit about um the oh shucks, I'm gonna mess it up now. Hmm. Grecian Wars, I think was Greece was at war at the time. I might be messing that up. But we had talked about the Malian dialogue. That's what it was. And in the Malian dialogue, what was pulled out of that is a value system. And that value system says basically those who are stronger, they decide the course, they decide what happens. Their strength is what gives them the right. It's not about having a moral compass. It's, do I have the ability to do it? If I have the ability to do it, that is the morality in of itself. Because if I don't have the ability to do it, then what are we talking about? I can't do it because I can't. So in the Malian dialogue, what was pulled out, the idea that was pulled out is that might is right. If you can, you're right simply because you can. And if you can't, well, you're wrong simply because you can't. That's the idea. Now, that ain't the only idea of how to human. There's plenty of ideas on how to human, how to be, an earthling. But that idea took hold over 2,000 years ago and has maintained its hold because it was fed. The idea that if I'm stronger than someone, then what I'm doing can't be wrong. It's probably them that's wrong. That idea has found its way into the modern era, and we still are feeding that idea. Because when somebody does something that's wrong, we don't ask, was the action wrong? We say things like, oh, somebody raped her? How short was her skirt? We don't say, what someone assaulted, somebody, violated her. We don't say that. We say, what was she wearing? Because the idea today that rules is might is right. And if you are a victim, then it's probably your fault. You probably did something to make yourself a victim. You should have did something to make yourself more powerful. That is the idea of might is right. And we live in it today because we still feed it. So, what I was saying, solutions to this paradigm we find ourselves in. Okay? My solution, starve them to death. Ideas don't die. You can shoot Martin, but you couldn't kill the dream. Okay? Ideas don't die. They find new people who will feed them. Just like if you sitting at a table and it ain't no food, you're not going to just stay there because, well, this is the table and this is where food is served. So I'm just going to stay right here. No, eventually you're going to get up and be like, damn, it ain't no food here. And you're going to go somewhere else to find food. Ideas do the same exact thing. They are no different. If there's no one feeding them, they go somewhere else where they can be fed. So the solution in this case, starve them. Starve them ideas to death. Don't attack people who take up the idea. That's useless. You can educate those people who have taken up the idea. You can share other ideas with them, but don't attack the people who take up an idea. All you're going to do is complete the cycle because the idea will bounce from them to their child. When you say, oh, you are wrong for doing this thing, we're going to kill you, we're going to take you up out of here. And then their child comes up after them and says, what did my daddy die for? Oh, what idea was that? Oh, yeah, I'm on that. You can't destroy ideas by destroying the living. The living are the batteries. That's all. They're the battery for the idea. The way you make ideas go away is you don't feed them. So that's my solution. Starve them to death. Create a food desert, not food dessert. Okay. Next, I'd say practice practice repetition. I'm sorry, practice. Sorry, practice. Reason why I say practice is because the very first time you are embodied with an idea, you're not going to probably execute that idea well. You have no practice. It just popped up in your head, and you're like, I wonder if this could be a thing. But in order for it to be a thing for real, it takes practice, whether it's good or bad. In this case, going from bad to good, it's going to take practice. Repetition creates reality. Okay. Um, when you decide that you don't like how an idea is playing out, stop practicing it. Don't wait for somebody to say this is what we need to do as a group, or vote some person in who's going to come and save it, or no, you, the individual, you, the person with the power to practice it, stop practicing it, or practice something different. Practice something that's in opposition to that. One of the things that we're faced with today is this idea that we are financially in a terrible spot. We've never been this messed up before. We're trying to make our country great again. We're trying to do all these different things to get back to a place where we feel like we're doing good, right? And everyone has 1,000 different ideas on how to do that. And so while we are entertaining thousands of ideas, we're practicing the same one. The same one that got us into this. That's what we practice. But we talk about other ideas. We bat them around and yeah, that sounds good. And maybe we'll do that. But what we practice, what we do, that is what creates reality. So if you don't like where you are, you don't like how things are going, ask yourself, what am I practicing? Not what do I believe, okay? Which is different. Because I may believe that women and men should be given equal footing in life. They shouldn't be given more to one or the other. I might believe that, right? But when it comes time for me to pay my employees, pay the men $5 more than I pay the women as a practice. So it doesn't matter what my belief system is. What you practice is what reality is based off of. Practice is the bricks that builds the house of reality. So ask yourself, what am I practicing? If you find yourself in a space where you're like, I don't like this, I don't like how things are going, okay? Don't look out, look in. Okay? Don't look back or see my dad and my mom. No. Literally look at yourself and say, what am I practicing? Because whatever it is that you are not liking, you can stop that shit immediately. You don't like the situation, you don't like your reality. Well, you are in control of that. And the way that changes is, what are you practicing? What are you doing? Because the action that you're doing is the last part of what I just said, those 3 points: entertaining, imagination, and realization. The practice is what cements it. Entertaining is like, oh, that's a good idea. Universal health care. It sounds good. That's entertaining the idea. Okay. Um, Imagining a world where there's no starvation. That's a great idea. Where people aren't starving and everyone has enough to eat. That's super. The realization is what you're practicing, is what you're doing. Between you and your family members, do you practice charity? Is that something that you do? Or when you see a homeless person, you give them a sandwich and you're like, I'm charitable. I've done a good thing. That is not practice. Practice is something that you're doing every day. Okay? It's an everyday thing. It's not a once in a while thing. It's not a once a month thing. That means that you are taking the idea in its base form. If the idea is charity, you are taking the idea of charity in its base form and practicing it. So if the definition of charity means to give to others without thinking of yourself or thinking of what you might be losing by giving this thing away, if that's the base idea of charity, that means that you can practice that in so many different ways. You can walk right past the homeless person and still be practicing charity in a different way because you're taking of yourself, whether it be time, energy. Somebody walk by and say, somebody, in your life says that some things are not going well or whatever, and you're giving them that ear, you're listening to them, just giving them that ear that they need just to, have somebody to complain to. You're practicing charity. So then now once you practice charity, charity becomes a part of your reality. You don't have to second guess it. So that's how you go from bad to good. Practice. Because that's how you got. That's how you got to bad. It was practice. You did something. I know you want to blame somebody. But the truth of the matter is, you are the center of the universe. You are it. If it's happening, you want it to happen. You made it happen. You allowed it to happen for whatever reason. Don't get stuck on stupid trying to figure out why. Why is this happening? Understand it is happening because you are allowing it to happen. And once you understand that fully and truly, whatever it is that you don't want to happen or whatever it is you do want to happen will take place as soon as you understand that it's you. It's not outside of you. Okay? All right, let's continue. So, ignorance is not knowing. Ignorance is the process where we allow realities to exist. Practice it, sync it, and make it relevant. What do I mean by that? Okay, ignorance is not knowing. That means that we typically think of ignorance means that I don't know something. But the root of ignorance is ignore. So if I want something to be practiced or I want something to be relevant and real in life, I'm going to have to pay attention to one thing and I'm going to have to ignore something else. Grounded has said earlier that in some Aboriginal cultures, they practice having a pot that everybody puts into the pot, and one family member or family or person will get the pot and use the pot for whatever their individual thing is. And then we pass it on to the next person. We all put in, and then the next person takes out. Okay, and we pass that around so everybody has had their individual thing that they want to develop, had the opportunity to be backed by the community. This is a practice. It is a financial practice. So when you're looking at your finances and you're saying, well, what's going on with my finances? Ask yourself, what is it that I ignore and what is it that I give attention to? Because I can tell you for a fact that when I overlook my little finances and I ain't got no money, but when I started to see like, I want my money to be spent better, I had to look at what was I ignoring? You know what I was ignoring? I was ignoring the high price of DoorDash. And I was willing to ignore that because I didn't feel like getting up to go out, drive down the street or whatever it took me, walk wherever I had to do to get whatever it is I wanted. I was willing to ignore the cost. What is it actually costing me to practice this? DoorDashing or getting food from DoorDash. Well, once I stopped ignoring the price that it cost me to do this, I saw that for the same price that I'm paying somebody else to bring me food, I could go get that same food, or even more, I could make the same food But in order for me to recognize that that's where my money was going, I had to first stop ignoring stuff. I had to stop ignoring the actual what was actually happening to my money. So I say ignorance because ignorance is a process. It's a process of choosing. You are deciding that this thing deserves my attention and that thing does not. But whatever it is that you ignore might be the thing that you need to be paying attention to. That might be the thing that's biting you in the butt. It is your ignorance. The fact that you are willing to ignore um, whatever it is. Sometimes we ignore consequences. I'll be all right tomorrow. I'll have a little hangover. You know what I mean? I'll be okay. We ignoring the consequence. The reason why you have the hangover the next morning is because your body has not filtered out that alcohol through your liver while you were sleeping. It's still in your system, and your body has not been able to get rid of it. But you ignore that. I'll be all right. I'll go to work. 20 years of doing that has a consequence that you cannot ignore. When that consequence comes, you'll want to look everywhere else but in the mirror. The truth is, it's you. You are the source. Okay? So, ignorance. Ignorance plays a part in taking us back from bad, taking us out of our situation bad into a good situation. What are you ignoring? The difference between, okay, hold on. Yeah, the difference between man and evil is spirit. Okay? The difference between man and evil is spirit. The spirit we have is of the Father. Okay? That is an eternal spirit. That energy that is in you is eternal. It is never going anywhere. And it animates you. And that eternal energy is what ideas feed off of. Okay? Because it's forever. You will never run out of food if you are sourcing your food from this energy source. It's eternal. So that's why they come after us. That's why ideas seek us out. Because we offer a smorgasbord, an endless smorgasbord. Wouldn't you go somewhere where you know it's free food, free good food, and it's always present? You'd pull up too. And that's what ideas do for us. They pull up because we offer an endless amount, an endless bounty of energy, source energy. So the difference between us and that which we would consider to be evil is that we are eternal beings like the Father. We have that same source energy, but we are also determined beings. We can eternally determine what it is we want to do. We got options, endless options. And that is why they come here. That is why ideas pull up, because we offer everything and we give it away freely. Evil is way smarter, but we are more durable. Do not try to outthink evil, instead, outlast it. Infinite spirit is strength. It's like the cheat on the game. We have infinite spirit. So when we see a bad situation or we're trying to change bad from good, remember that the bad is only situational. It's just like that because it appears to be like that right now. What you have, the energy that makes you alive, is an eternal energy. Eternal. It's never going anywhere. It's not situational. It's not circumstantial. It is eternal energy. So rather than try to fight your way out of evil, don't try to fight evil. You're not gonna win in a battle of wits with evil. Okay. The satanic energy it was created from wisdom, pure wisdom. In the writings, it says that um, the energy that emanated from source energy that's considered itself the feminine portion of the source energy. That energy we call wisdom. It is from that energy that the oppositional energy was created. It emanated from that. That oppositional energy is much wiser than you. It is much older than you. Okay? You're not going to outthink it or outsmart it. It's literally designed to be a challenge to you. You're not going to outthink it. You're not going to come up with a better way to do what you're doing when it's got some evil aspect to it. You're going to have to make a decisive decision to choose which you're going to either pay attention to, which you're going to ignore, which path you're going to go down, and which one you're not. Ain't no two ways about it. You're not going to outsmart evil, but you can outlast it by maintaining your position as source. I am what everything comes to. I come from the energy of creation, so all creation comes to me. Even the satanic energy comes to me to see what I'm doing. Where are my energies at? Where are my attentions at? Because that is how it eats. Um, so don't try to outthink it. Continue to do what you know is right and do it consistently, repetitively. That's how you change from bad to good. Good vibration exists, and so does bad vibes. Bad vibration is how evil travels. Good vibrations create an empty space where there is nothing for the evil to travel upon. A good example is like when you're underwater, right? Sound underwater does not travel as fast as sound traveling on air molecules. In the vacuum of space, it can't even travel at all because there's nothing for it to bounce off of. It needs to be in touch with something because sound is just basically energy, a wave traveling from one particle to the next. No particles, no sound. Evil is exactly the same way. Everything is vibrating, everything is moving, and evil has its own vibration. It has its own signature, its own station that you can tune into. So, how do I go from bad to good? Well, you need to make a space where there is nothing for it to travel on, just like in space, just like underwater, where sound is kind of muffled. When you try to yell underwater, it don't sound the same. It sounds slower, sounds dimmer, lower. Well, that is what we have to do. We have to create that space, create that water, and we do that through practice. Practicing ideas that we know and believe that are not going to transmit those negative vibes. After we practice that and we practice it on one another, with one another, the space in between us now is not filled with anything that it can bounce off of, that evil vibes can bounce off of. There's nothing there for it. So it has to go somewhere else. Good wisdom versus bad wisdom. Good wisdom is light based vibes. The absence of light creates dark vibes. Wisdom is light and ignorance is dark. Ignorance being the lack of. The same way um, light exists, the lack of light we call darkness. When light is not there, present, we call that darkness. Well, evil is the same way. Wisdom, I'm sorry, is the same way. Wisdom is not just uh, across the board all the same. Some wisdom can be good wisdom, and some wisdom can be bad wisdom. You can be wise to do evil. I'll give you a perfect example. You take an invention such as the combustion engine. The combustion engine seems, like a good idea. But in order to get the combustion engine to work, we have to burn things. The thing that we chose to burn is something that we find to be plentiful in the earth, but we find that when we burn it, the outcome of burning it is not good. So that means that the idea for the combustion engine in of itself is just wisdom. It's a way of doing a thing, right? But how do we do that thing? Can we combust water? Can we burn water? Is it possible? Can we make an engine that just runs off of water? Well, lo and behold, we can. We can make an engine that runs off of water. Or we can make an engine that runs off of the black liquid that we find in the earth. The decision to do one versus the other, to ignore the consequence of burning the black oil, that decision we see in the world now playing itself out. We see how the earth is responding to our decision to ignore what happens when we burn the black liquid. When we see that, when we see that happening, and we say, well, it's all right. We'll just make our what do you call it? Our refrigerators with less CFCs. We're not going to stop using this combustion engine the way we've designed it. We're just going to try to do something else. That's how you know. Because there was an idea, right? The idea went from idea to reality, and the reality is hurting us. So now we have to judge this idea. Was the idea in of itself bad? No. But how we brought it about, is it hurting us? Yes. What are we ignoring? What are we not paying attention to when it comes to this? That's what we have to ask ourselves. And it don't take that long of a you ain't got to be all super smart and all that nerdy and all that. It don't take that long for you to realize that the only reason we're using the black oil is because it was beneficial for someone. Someone said there's a benefit in this for me. And they ignored what it was doing to everyone else. That's why we use it. Ignorance. So there's good wisdom and there's bad wisdom. We were wise to create the combustion engine, and we were foolish to allow it to run off of black oil. That's the difference between good wisdom and bad wisdom. Ask yourself, in what you're doing in this journey to go from bad to good, is what I'm doing wise? And is that enough? Is it enough for me just to be doing something that's wise? In most cases, you'll find that it's not enough. Because wisdom in of itself is not enough. Besides wisdom, you have to have understanding. You have to understand what the outcome of what I'm practicing is. Once you understand what the outcome is, then you can determine, is this thing a good thing or a bad thing? Is this good wisdom or bad wisdom? Am I being smart to do evil? Because if you are, then you cannot expect good to come out of it. You can't say, wow, we're in this situation, it's so bad. You're in a situation because you chose to ignore it. And it is your creation. That is the case with the combustion engine. It's our creation. But just like we created it and we allow it, we entertain it, we practice it, we can also practice something else. The power is in our hands to do that. All right. I said I wasn't going to do this long. What time? Oh, that's been 40 minutes. Jesus Christ.
What happened to your quickie? This is your quickie. That's how you quick.
15 minutes. All right, I'm just gonna read fast. All right. All right. Where am I going next? All right. Imagine seeing someone swimming. You don't know how to swim, but you're an astute. You are an you are astute and pay attention to detail. You pay astute attention to detail. I wrote this in the night with no light. Um, you pay astute attention to detail. If you watch enough people swimming, you can teach yourself from ignorance how to swim. So you you so you can learn from ignorance. Ignorance can teach you, but it will be deficient in some way. When I first started trying to learn how to swim, this is literally what I did. I watched people swim. I would watch the elders come to the Y, and it looked like they were barely moving, but they glided across the water. And I'm like, what are they doing? I didn't know how to swim. I was ignorant, but I watched. And I watched and I watched and I watched and I tried to repeat what I saw them doing because apparently they are good swimmers. So I watched swimmers. However, without adequate knowledge, if you just observe, it is very likely and highly probable that you will be deficient in some way. You will be lacking in some way. The problem with this is in ignorance, you don't know what you're lacking. Because you don't know what you don't know, this is why when when you learn from ignorance, you are ignorant of what is missing from your learning. This is why when um, wisdom emanated, she was considered, she was um, covered in goodness. Also, when I should tell you what I'm reading from. Um, Let me just back up a little bit. So I was reading from um, I don't know if you know, but there's a there's a collection of stories that were not um, allowed to be part of the canon of Hebraic history. The non-Hebraic people thought that these were not important stories, so they did not include them in the Hebraic history. Today, you call that Hebraic history a Bible, and you look at it as something that has something to do with some guy who was supposed to be great and coming back for you thousands of years later. Um, yeah, that's one way of doing it. That's one way of looking at it. However, the way I'm looking at it is stories, collective stories of a people's history, cultural history. Some of these stories did not make it in the canon because the people who were in control of it at that time did not think that they belonged. So I've gone to access some of those stories, and this is where I'm getting. This is where I'm drawing from for this part of the lesson. Um, but in those stories, we get the story of the emanation of wisdom from source energy, and in that story, wisdom or the energy that we call wisdom emanated from source energy, and from her also there were other emanations. Okay. Um, One of those emanations that came from her um, is a spirit or an energy of comfort. Um, we've seen it in the story of Noah, where that energy came down to protect him. It didn't come down in the form of a man, though. It just came to protect him. And from that story, we know that we know the style of that energy, of that comforter energy. That energy was seen again much later in the Hebraic stories, but I'm not going to get into that for fear of confusing people. But So that the energy that we call wisdom emanated from source in this story. She was covered in goodness, and also when the son that was created from her, uh, who we call compassion and the comforter, when that energy emanated from her, it too was covered with goodness and truth. So it was a complete energy, a whole energy, a full energy. However, that was not the only energy that emanated from wisdom. There was another energy that emanated from wisdom that was not full and complete and whole. It was deficient. Um, if neither had not been brought to completion by the Spirit of the Father, they would remain deficient. That is the Spirit of wisdom, the energy of wisdom, and the energy of what we call the Comforter. Uh, the Another one that I've heard it called is the Holy Spirit. People call it that too. But that energy in our story was completed. It emanated from source and it was completed. It was covered and made whole from the Father, from the originator. Um, Without that completion of that energy, it would remain deficient, missing something. Okay. Uh, if either had not been brought to completion by the Spirit of the Father, source energy, they would remain deficient, lacking in the same way, but ignorant of what they lacked. Now imagine learning from ignorance and then teaching others this is what it is, or this is what it's meant to be. That means that now you're teaching because your teaching is deficient. Everyone who has learned from you will also be deficient in the same way. And they will continue to carry that on, teaching that deficiency as if it was fact. Again, this is, we started with ignorance, right? So you don't know what you don't know. You just watching and you see and it looks and it appears this way, and then you go on and you share that story. Not trying to be, evil or whatever, but just being deficient, not knowing, not having all of the information. So now, if you if you have learned then from ignorance and the teaching of ignorance, then what can you teach if not something that is ignorant? Uh, us, uh, just as if the original ignorant swimmer were to teach others, he or she would pass on their flaws, and their flaws would be evident in even a novice, or evident to even a novice swimmer. Typically, what is what must occur is more ignorance to cover flaws. For example, what I mean by that is that when something comes from ignorance and it is ignorant of its own ignorance, in order to fix the flaws that someone who is knowledgeable will point out, ultimately, you have to come up with a reason and you got to add more to it in order to try to make it whole. Typically, this happens with, like I said, in the case of the combustion engine, we say, oh, the oil that we're burning is bad. So let's do this. Let's cut the oil with alcohol and make it a little bit less, right? That'll make it better. But at the end of the day, when you compare the combustion engine to running off water or running off oil, the water is better. Period. If you take that black oil and you cut it down and make a little bit less black oil, it's not as bad, but it's not good either.
That's because that oil is supposed to be mixed with something else so it won't pollute the planet. But they're not interested in that because that's costly. But I could be just grabbing at straws, but that's what I just heard in my head.
Could
So
be.
I don't know.
Could be. Um.
No, they said
So
that is B.
that
They said that is B.
okay.
So
So
what is the other thing to mix it with? It? What the fuck? You see how that half shit go?
right. What was I reading? Oh, so the modern example of advance. Okay. For example, modern quote unquote advancements such as the combustion engine were developed from ignorance. They ignored that burning fossil fuels and oil would that would do to the environment. That ignorance led to the pollution of the air. In order to fix the deficiency, more ignorance is applied to the problem. They say we will use an electric vehicle from now on, ignoring the fact that creating, using, and disposing of electrical parts in the industry creates new problems without adequately solving the problems created by the first.
However, mushrooms heal and cure everything. So if there is a mushroom that can eat up all the plastic in the ocean
Mhm,
and eat up all the oil in the ocean,
mhm,
there are mushrooms that you can plant around big cities where that engine is combusting, and it will end the spores of it will eat the whatever that engine the thing is going off,
right.
it's gonna eat it.
Mhm.
Right. So I don't know which mushroom that is, but it does help. It does it.
But in order to follow that path, we would have to be looking at what it is that we're creating and finding a problem with it. We have to say that something's wrong here. As long as we're looking at what we've created and saying, this is all good, then there's nothing to fix, right? So
Babe, you didn't eat it?
I was waiting for it to dethaw. Um, so where am I at? Hold on, let me try to finish this because I'm almost done. Um,
You said that 40
shit.
minutes ago.
Okay, so where was I at? Okay, right. So they're telling you now that the electrical vehicle that's the way to go. Now the mining that takes place in order to create these electrical vehicles, they won't tell you that there are hundreds and thousands of children mining these raw minerals from the earth. They won't tell you that the people who mine the raw minerals from the earth to create your electric cars live in destitute poverty. Okay, they're not gonna tell you that part. They won't tell you that once you're done using that electric car, in order to dispose of that electric battery, you can't just throw it away because the components that create that battery will create a fire that will continue to burn. Can't be put out. These are the downsides.
Oh, like dragon oil?
Mhm. So these are the downsides that are not being presented to you. And the reason why they're not being presented to you is because, again, going from a place of ignorance, flawed thinking in the first place, what you have to do is you have to acknowledge that it was flawed. You have to acknowledge that you created it out of ignorance. If you're not willing to do that, then you cannot go from bad to good. The first step has to be you recognizing, well, this is not the best thing for me. This came from a place of ignorance. I did not know what I was doing when I made this decision to go this path. But you cannot say, oh, it's all right. I'll just, no. The first step is to recognize this was created from ignorance. I didn't know what I was doing when I got into this relationship. What was I doing? I thought I knew what I was doing, but I didn't know what I was doing. And if you don't recognize that first, you can't even get to good. Okay? So ignoring the fact that hold on. I read that already. Here we go. The trees have been felled. The coal has been burnt. The unbalance has already been created. What exists now is an attempt to remain in power, not an attempt to correct deficiency. So you in this relationship, it's working for you. You like where you live. The guy is treating you okay, but
Damn, that's it. It's okay.
you know with your heart and soul that you ain't supposed to be here. This ain't where you're supposed to be. So what you do is you say, well, I know this ain't the best possible relationship for me, but these are the things that I'm getting out of it. I know burning this crude oil is affecting the earth. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get me an electric car, right? Because the electric car is still gonna get me to where I gotta be. You're not willing to say, maybe I need to stop this driving thing.
Mm.
Maybe I need to reassess how I get from point A to point B. Because my first idea is destroying the air. My second idea is destroying the people that breathe the air. Maybe I'm wrong about how to get from point A to point B, and I need to reassess. All right? That's how we get from bad to good. Just being honest with ourselves. Okay? And if you made some ignorant decisions, guess what? That makes you human. Congratulations, you're an earthling.
Am I?
You made some bad decisions. But if you're trying to get from bad to good, this is the process.
Okay. You done?
So, okay, hold on.
Watch this be 2 hours. This is
All
your
right, so
quickie.
how do we correct deficiency? What is required to correct deficiency? The Father Spirit poured goodness on wisdom in order to make her whole. The Father poured His Spirit also on the Spirit of the Comforter in order to make it whole, filling it with truth, in order to make it whole. Solomon said, get wisdom, but above all your wisdom, get understanding, because without it, wisdom can be corrupted. You can be wise to do evil. The Father empowered the Son with truth. So, truth is the answer. Truth is how we correct deficiency. If the spirit that you call the Son, the Comforter, if that energy had emanated from wisdom and had not been filled with truth, it would be as deficient as the energy that you call Satan. You have two of them running around. How's that for your stories?
Deficient means not fish deficient, right?
Lacking. So the answer, how do we correct deficiencies? Truth. If you're in a relationship, you know that it's not going anywhere, but some of your needs are being met. Be brutally honest with yourself. Tell yourself the truth that you don't want to tell nobody else. Tell it to yourself first. The truth of the matter is, people have controlling interest in oil. Their controlling interest moves their decision making, not what is good for the planet. That's the truth. The truth is the replacement, the electric car, is another group of people who are trying to dispose the other group of people from their controlling interest. And those people who are in control are trying to maintain control. So they're going to invest their little bit of oil money into a little electric here and there to maintain control. They're not being truthful, not being honest. The truth is, they do not want to lose the power and the influence that they have. That is the truth. The truth is, we don't actually need half of the things that we produce. That is the truth. If you want to go from bad to good, a healthy amount of truth is how you get there. Start by just telling yourself the truth. I like her. I've been with her for a while, but she does not fulfill my soul. And I'm afraid that if I leave her, I will never find somebody that's even close enough to her, and I won't find my actual soulmate either. So I'm just going to stay right here. Tell yourself the truth. That's how you go from bad to good. And that is in situations, that is in circumstance, and that is in life. Because this is how we are created from source energy. You have to choose. If you don't like what you see, your reality, start with the truth and do the same thing you did to get here. Cole had a good line where he said, "Congratulations, you came a long way. But the bad news is you went the wrong way." So start the same way you did before to get into that bad situation. Start the same way. Start by entertaining things. Second, use your imagination. Third, practice realization. So, one, I'm going to say to myself, what if this is not the best? What if this job is not the best job for me? I'm still going to go to work tomorrow, right? But I'm going to entertain the idea, what if there's another way for me to make income? Because that's the goal, right? The goal of this job is to give me income or knowledge, something that I can use, right? So then entertain the idea. Don't quit your job. That's foolish. Go to the job you hate. While you're on the way to the job, entertain the idea. Let the idea flow through your head. How can I gain income from something that's not what I'm doing right now? Entertain the idea. Next, imagine. Imagine you are getting up and you're going to not work. Fill in the blank. What would be there? Remember what I said in the beginning of this lesson. Ideas are energy and they want to eat like every other living thing. So if you say to yourself, if you open yourself up to the idea, bad or good, it will come. I really want to get rid of this dude. I don't like him at all. Right? That's the beginning. You entertaining the idea of getting rid of this dude. I don't like him. That's the entertainment. Second is going to be you're going to imagine something. You're going to think, man, what if he just got hit by a car? What if he's just backing out his driveway and somebody just run into him? You're just throwing shit out there. But by you doing that, you are placing the table, you setting the fork and the plate and the knife and the cup. Nothing in it. But you setting the table with your imagination. And eventually, someone gonna come to eat. Them ideas is gonna come, good or bad, wherever you call it, whatever you call it. But the ideas, the energy is going to come because you're setting the table for it. Come eat. You have to do the same thing to go from bad to good. The same exact thing, same process. You have to imagine, what would it be like if I wasn't with her, if I wasn't with him, if I wasn't here, if I wasn't there? Imagine, where could I be? Once you do that, entertain the idea, imagine a different idea, then comes the realization, damn, I've been wasting my time at this fucking job, right? But you already knew that. And the idea for you to get into a different place that brings income to you is standing right there waiting for you. But just like when you go to IHOP, you stand in line and wait, right? It's a long ass fucking line. You be like, yo, I'm about to leave this joint, right? But when they say party for two, or they call your name, let's go. Let's go eat. Ideas are the same exact thing. They are energies. Set a plate for them. Make it look nice. Call their name. They will come and eat because they are part of the living creator that we come from. They are living as well. This is how you go from bad to good. Simple process. All right, it's been an hour and 9 minutes. I'm gone. Have a good life. Be good. good to yourself and others.
It's press in live.
We're at
In live.
and stream.
Yeah, and stream. Sorry.
All right.